This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 949, recorded on Wednesday, October 25th. Do roosters even know themselves? I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we are going to fill your heads with faces, pigeons, and pigs. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience.
Disclaimer. We're about a week away from the Celtic festival of Samhain, a celebration welcoming the harvest at the end of summer, usually held around November 1st, marking the transition from summer to winter. Fall had apparently yet to be invented. During Samhain, or however you pronounce it, I know there's people out there going to say, that's not how you say it, but that's how I say it. People dressed in costumes and lit bonfires to ward off ghosts. They believed, or participated in a tradition, that the souls of the dead returned to their homes on that day. We know it today as Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, in part thanks to Christianity, which created All Saints' Day, and a long tradition of borrowing from pagan traditions in order to create new ones. A rebranding that may have been helpful when locals under church rule still followed old traditions. While the air this time of year is just right for the most superstitious of holidays, you need not be superstitious to believe in ghosts. We are often visited by ghosts from the past here on the show. Scientists who test their ideas against the universe long after they have passed. Creatures of enormous size, leaving footprints in our imaginations. Entire branches of humanity that once walked the earth entice us with their stories. And tonight, a girl long dead will show her face for the first time in centuries. Here at TWIS, we would like to wish you all a happy Twisoween in the coming week, and hope that any ghosts visiting your home don't stay longer than another episode of This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to you, Kiki.
And a good science to you too, Justin, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. It's not yet Halloween, it's not yet Samhain, but you know, things are scary out there, so eat candy, be happy, find things to celebrate, like pumpkins. Yeah, or whatever, whatever fills your gourd.
Yeah, I don't think I've carved a pumpkin for, it must have been at least a year now. Gosh. Good thing Halloween came around and it reminded us of those fun things that we should be doing all throughout the year.
You can carve a pumpkin whenever you want, but this is the official time to do this. Yes. And it is now the official time for us to be talking about the science news, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a great show ahead full of all sorts of stories. I have stories about language lessons, pig priorities, rooster recognition, LIGO leveling up, and lots of brains. Well, I always have brains, but anyway. What do you have, Justin?
I've got the face of an ancient mummy.
Okay.
The fuzzy bane of blueberries. Spooky policing. And an old trope dies once again.
Oh. Do we like tropes dying? Is that what we like? Or
Yeah,
tropes?
sometimes they're overdue. This is the one that used to go that men hunt, women gather,
Oh,
and now has been updated again on the show. I feel like we've done this a few
we've
times.
talked. Yep.
But this is another look at men hunt and gather while women hunt and gather.
Every
Also,
able-bodied person is gonna help us all survive. So let's talk.
can you imagine now? It's like,
talk about
like
that. Yeah.
it comes to be winter and women are just like, all right, we're done working. Yeah, there's not a lot of gathering to do right at this time of year. So just go out and hunt. We're just gonna
sit
chill
here,
out for a while.
cook a soup over the fire. Whatevs. As we jump into the show here tonight, I would like to remind all of you that there are consequences. No, there's no consequences.
Oh, it got my attention.
Yeah. Subscribe to This Week in Science if you're not already subscribed on our YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook channels where we stream live every Wednesday night around 8 p.m. Pacific time. We're on a lot of podcast platforms out there. Make sure you're telling your friends about it. And if you just look for This Week in Science or visit TWIS.org, our website, you'll be able to find all the show notes and other ways to, find us, subscribe to us, etc. But now is time for the science. Yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. So I am going to start us out with a story from one of my favorite astrophysics experiments out there. LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory.
And there's a couple of them, right?
Yes, there are a couple here in the United States at different locations. There's another detector in Europe called Virgo, so it's the LIGO Virgo group. And then there's an additional observatory that is elsewhere. So all of these laser interferometers, they have lasers that are in tubes. And the
giant tube with lasers firing down.
And the laser is supposed to go straight. And the laser goes straight and it bounces against a mirror. And they've been able to get rid of a lot of the Newtonian noise around these lasers. So the rumbling of trucks, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's something, because you have multiple observatories in different places around the planet, they can look at all the data and go, oh, okay, that was just a truck. That's just local noise. They can get rid of that noise. But it allows them to triangulate what they're doing. These detectors are ridiculous in their resolution. Gravitational waves come through. And if you can imagine them passing through Earth, like a wave with water. It kind of stretches and squeezes space-time as it comes through. And so everything in its path is like stretched and squeezed. And these observatories are looking at this stretching and squeezing on a scale 10,000 trillion times smaller than a human hair. Tiny, tiny, tiny measurements. And what they have been limited by so far is quantum physics. They are really good so far at the Newtonian scale of things. But they were like, all right, there's a lot of noise at the quantum level, and we can't get rid of it. And if we could get rid of it, then maybe, just maybe, we could have even finer detection, higher frequencies, or of different amplitude waves. Maybe we could sense very sensitive measurement beyond what they've already done. And so they published a paper.
So instead of a 3-mile long tube of lasers, they've got a microchip on a quantum computer that's going to do everything.
Nope, it's still the mile long or whatever tube of lasers. We're still in the tube of lasers, but now it's just getting weird. And seriously, if Feynman were here right now, he would say if anyone tries to explain this to you, they don't really know what they're talking about, because they don't really know what they're talking about. They're taking the quantum limit of what we know of as space-time, where at that Planck scale in vacuum space, so if we've got a laser in a vacuum space, there's still particles that are popping into and out of existence, and that's making noise, and that noise is bumping the laser, because those quantum particles are like little popcorns that are like, pop, 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 and the laser goes, and it's noisy, and it changes the way that the laser can record the gravitational waves. So now they are treating these quantum particles that are popping into and out of existence like balloon animals. They are squeezing them. It is a quantum technology. They're reporting it in Physical Review X. This advance in what they're doing, and seriously, this technology is called squeezing, in which they are able to use the general relativity. So they squeeze the particles, so they're able to either make the laser beam more accurate in terms of frequency, or make it more accurate in terms of the power, the amplitude that it has. But they can't do both at the same time. When they squeeze these particles, the squeezing of the particles makes these lower energy particles that bump the laser and impact the way the laser's frequency is moving. And so when they do that and change and try and make a more accurate frequency, it actually makes a noisier, louder, rumbly laser signal. Because they can't take advantage or like fix the amplitude. So it gets rumbly. But then when they squeeze it in terms of the amplitude, they're able to get a very, very nice signal. And so we get lower, smaller signals, but with higher amplitude. So we're able to be more fine-tune now some of these signals from gravitational waves that maybe happened further in the past, that maybe were even smaller. It's a very interesting way that they are moving through this technology to be able to squeeze these photons to create higher sensitivity so that they can sense more collisions from further in the past, to be able to actually understand a bit more about when and where things were forming and smashing into each other throughout the history of our universe.
Can't help but feel like there's also like an experiment that's being missed. Okay, we're detecting this quantum noise in the background. Oh, we got to get this noise tuned out however we can. There's these silly particle things that are popping in and out, like you're saying, in and out of existence, or what have you. Or
you can't control that, but yes.
Well, but what if that is actually an interesting thing to look at and observe and record? We're trying to tune out what might actually be an interesting experiment to actually see what's going on. What's all this popping in and out all about? What if we could actually just monitor that and find out what's going on there? Because that's not really an explained thing.
No, right? The Planck distance and particles popping into and out of existence, this quantum realm of, the Heisenberg principle, and there's so it's complicated, and it's fascinating, and it's amazing that researchers have been able to squeeze light in such a way that they...
You've got an interesting ad up there, I think.
Oh, great. Wonderful advertisements for other videos at the end of that one that I was showing. That was a video from Caltech that I just was sharing with everyone. The researchers, though, are saying at some point, if you do more squeezing, you're not going to gain much. We need to prepare for what was to come next in our ability to detect gravitational waves. Yeah, so they're reducing noise across the frequency range, but it has to be very specific. So they can either reduce the noise in the frequency or in the amplitude, but they can't do both at the same time because of the quantum wave particle reality of light and particles. Anyway, one of the researchers, a team member, Rana Adhikari, a professor at Caltech, says, we've known now for a while how to write down the equations to make this work, but it was not clear that we could actually make it work until now. It's like science fiction. And I kind of have to agree. I think we're stepping into a place that's very advanced, and the minute level of precision that they are achieving is pretty amazing. Going from Newtonian physics, getting rid of the rumble of trucks, to the quantum realm. Quantum light creates a problem, but it also gives...
Because that was, you brought up trucks a few times. That was like one of the first gravity waves that LIGO detected. Turned out to be truck traffic. Like, there was a certain time when the trucks were rumbling by. And that's when they would say, every morning around 5 in the morning, we get this gravity wave. Well, it's also when the trucks leave the nearby factory. Oh, what a coincidence.
I love one of the history of this whole idea of squeezing light. It got kicked off, experimental demonstrations in 1986 by researchers at Caltech, and this H. Jeff Kimball compared squeezed light to a cucumber. The certainty of the light measurements are pushed into only one direction or feature, turning quantum cabbages into quantum cucumbers.
Yeah, so
can we
one
just
of the
have
things...
physicists stop making analogies and metaphors?
Yeah, no, we just need good ones. And so if you're not an expert at making analogies, then someone should be able to stop you. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's like my complaint about all the administrators at NASA. If you aren't Carl Sagan or a poet of some sort, stop. You don't sound like you want to. You're not conveying.
Or Feynman, who answers the question, well, I'm not going to tell you because I'd have to tell you everything. And that's going to take a really long time. So
instead, I'm going to talk about rubber bands. I've got a rubber band, and I'm just going to manipulate this in front of the camera a little bit, and that's going to be your explanation. That's what you're going to have to live with, which is fine. Yeah. But it's kind of like if you had a cabbage and it became a cucumber. Stop. You've gone too far.
Or if I took a
balloon and I decided that I wanted to turn it into a balloon dog. Suddenly,
So LIGO is working on this squeezing technology. It hopefully will be applied to Virgo very soon. And then the two of them will be doing runs through the end of 2024 that will potentially bring us even more neutron star destruction and black hole collisions and all sorts of interesting stuff. So we'll keep waiting for all that news. But in the meantime... yeah, quantum balloon animals.
Well, the exciting thing is first of all that it's now detecting anything. Because for the longest time it just wasn't. And then
LIGO started detecting stuff right away.
Yeah, but we didn't know if it was gravity waves. We just have no idea what they were really detecting or if it was noise in the thing. But it's sort of like the guys who discovered the background radiation.
Yeah.
Of the universe, microwave background radiation, kept trying to clean their observatory. Kept thinking it was like pigeon poop building up in there or something. Right? It was just noise, and then somebody made a call. They called somebody and was like, "Hey, what do you think this is?" Well, there is a team looking for a signal in that frequency in space that's been theorized. Did you just find it?
We might
Let's go
have.
check.
Yeah, that looks like it.
'Cause we thought it was pigeon poop, and
Can't clean the universe.
but it's kind of like I'd be really excited if we get to the point where LIGO is through, like you say, all these collisions and things in the universe, being able to create sort of a map, like an echolocation of gravity events throughout the universe. It'd be really interesting to see how this develops and see what pictures that we can get of things that may not be visible.
Right. So this plus JWIST plus Hubble, like, so looking at there's Gaia, there's all these maps that are taking like different efforts to look at our universe, put them all together.
Yeah.
And what are we going to see? Yeah.
It will, and because part of the tricky part is where we look is limited.
Yeah.
Like where we look out into our galaxy is very limited in the little pinpoints where we decide to point a telescope and way in. But the gravity waves, I would assume, don't care which way we're looking.
Nope.
They're just waving through left and right, up and down, whichever you want to call a direction. And so that's, I think, the best possibility of getting a little bit more of a 3D map of all of the galaxy around us. Yeah, maybe.
Absolutely.
And then looking outside of our galaxy, I don't know if gravity waves are propagating in deep space.
Not outside. Outside. No, yeah. Outside the galaxy? Yes. These are gravitational waves. These are definitely out from all over the place.
So we can catch another galaxy's gravity wave this far away? I don't know. I don't know how long you can catch a wave in.
I don't know. Are you a quantum
space,
surfer, man? So we look out, and then we also look inward, and we look back in time. So tell me your story, Justin.
This is my story.
This is your
Teenage Inca girl died more than 500 years ago high atop the Andes Mountains near the summit of Amparo volcano in Peru. At an elevation of nearly 4 miles. Big mountain, big volcano. At an elevation of nearly 4 miles, the cold climate preserved her remains well enough to be discovered in 1995 with her internal organs, hair, blood, skin, contents of her stomach, all frozen. So
it's like Otzi or the Iceman.
Yeah.
Like
very much so. Very much so. Not as old as Otzi. He's 5,000-6,000 years old, something like that. She's only 500. But yeah, a great ice mummy, if you will. So this ice mummy, known as the Inca Ice Maiden, or sometimes the Lady of Amparo, or simply Juanita, because, of course, she should be given a Spanish name, seeing as how the Spanish destroyed the civilization she was born into.
Ouch, but true. Yes.
Some many years after she died, so they hadn't actually arrived there. But how better to preserve her memory than to give her a name based on a civilization she had never encountered, who also one better way
to the victor go the spoils.
One better way to maybe honor her, maybe facial reconstruction, to perhaps put a face to the forensic features. This was a team of Polish and Peruvian scientists worked with a Swedish sculptor specializing in facial reconstructions. Nilsson, Swedish archaeologist and sculptor, specializes in 3D facial reconstructions of ancient humans, spent about 400 hours modeling this face. And they used, of course, the skull and body scans. They went deeper. They've used DNA trait studies, some ethnological characteristics. They took into account age. This ice maiden is thought to be 13, 14, 15-year-old range, somewhere in there.
So young.
Yeah, very young. The reconstruction is of particular interest to me because this Incan girl and I have something in common. We share the same mother.
What?
How is that possible? You might wonder.
Yes.
How is it possible to have the same mother as a 500-year-old Incan girl? And the answer, of course, is obviously time travel.
Justin.
Well, that's how that works. The other one is genetics. We both have the A2 maternal haplogroup that is only passed down from mothers to their children.
Interesting.
So she's an A2 haplogroup, maternal haplogroup. So am I, which means somewhere in the traveling backwards in time through the unbroken line of mothers, one of those mothers that we have in common was shared. One of those, we have a mother who is the same mother.
Fascinating.
Isn't that fun? Yeah.
It's fun. How far back though? Like
I haven't
way far back. But
I have tried to do you do the family tree genealogy thing. I haven't gotten back even 500 years, and this is probably 20,000 plus years of just in the maybe much longer than that in the America. This is South America, so it's maybe more in the 30,000 plus range. A2's been around. I don't know, but my genealogy skills are not good enough. However, the genetic genealogy is there, and that says mothers all the way back, unbroken chain. Me and this girl are related.
Fascinating. At some point back in time.
But still, this is unbroken mother to daughter, mother to daughter, mother to daughter. It ends at me. I mean, I have it, but I can't pass it on.
But you can't pass it on because
I can't pass on it to you. So it ends if it's just the male.
And this is mitochondrial DNA, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, they did a reconstruction, and we're for the listening audience, the podcast listening audience, we're going to look at a picture of the Incan Ice Maiden facial reconstruction. And do one more. See that?
Are you turning your face now? You want to?
I got a little profile.
Justin is attempting to share his profile with this young.
I think they did a pretty good job on the nose. I think that's been well.
Definitely can see that.
Well preserved.
Yeah, the relation there. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's beautiful. The reconstruction. She was beautiful. She had to put all of these traits together, the ideas of the genetics and what traits that would give her, and the bones, the skull, everything, to produce this kind of a sculpting is really amazing. And I think it's incredible to, we do have statues from ancient Rome, ancient Greece. We have paintings, we have other art. But whenever we can put a face to someone, it hits so much more strongly, because just our nervous system is wired for faces. It just suddenly it's a person. It's not a skull. This was a young human being who was sacrificed in a ritual for whatever reason. Hopefully the rains came after. But
and so somebody's asking, is it wax? I understand it's silicone and some other construct. So I think it's designed more like a Hollywood prop than a Madame Tussauds wax museum kind of a thing.
Yeah, and she has She has beautiful olive skin, dark brown eyes. They've given the Nilsson, the sculptor, has given her an expression of looking out into the world.
Yeah. I know. It's funny.
It's
It's
really,
supposed to be
really
a sort of
incredible.
pensive look or something.
Yeah.
It kind of looks to me like, so like if somebody said, "So are you excited about getting sacrificed to the rain gods?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm really. That's great.
Great.
That's
culturally, it may have been an honor for her at that point in time.
Yeah, and she's dressed like nobility. She's wearing. She's got like a silver clasp on really fancy clothes and just finest textiles, and there's little figures of gold and silver that are there. But it might just be for that day, because
for that moment. But it doesn't matter. That was an important cultural moment. There were witches. But I don't know that bestowed upon the people who were sacrificed. Yes.
Yeah, but and first of all, it's even if that is what happened, I have two trains of thought. One is like, I don't think anybody really volunteers for these sorts of things. I think everybody around you saying it's a great idea doesn't mean that you think so. The other thing is,
because you're not part of that culture. You have no idea what it was like to be part of that culture at that
I have no idea, but
and it could have been a great, great honor that was very exciting. You have no idea.
But I also have a really strong resistance to the interpretation of sacrifice, human sacrifice in South America, because of where all that information filtered through.
Because how it historically was filtered. We don't.
Well, historically, initially a lot of it was nonsense and built up by conquistadors trying to justify their brutal tactics in the Americas,
their violence
to people back home who were starting to hear reports and going, "What are you doing to these
people?" But we have to, because they're
and then it's also
civilized. When in fact they were very civilized.
And that justification has been going on through a filter of trope and everything else. Whereas sometimes graveyards of people of all different ages and what have you have been interpreted as mass sacrifice because they found a lot of dead people buried, and so they were mass sacrifice. When in fact, when the actual forensic research comes in, these people all died at different times, at different ages. This looks like a cemetery. This is what you would expect, but with the filter that's on. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't human sacrifice that took place. Apparently, there was a lot, but I don't know if I believe it because the sources of a lot of this information filtered through time. And, well, I won't get into the other reasons, but there still seems to be some level of desire to justify the actions of the past in a lot of this, as well as biases of past research. But anyway, fun to see my distant cousin, sister, mother, friend portrayed this way.
I think it's very exciting. It's always fun when we can start putting these pieces together to put faces to historical figures and actually bring it into a realm of understanding that our brains can handle. Moving forward in stories, let's talk about AI and how it's teaching us about language a bit. Artificial intelligence. And yes, I know this is machine learning. And these two studies that I've been looking at this week are working with neural nets and so with neural networks of neuronal-like artificial constructs. So they're fake brains. They're computer brains, but not brains. But they're set up in a way that is meant to be learning and acting like the way that a brain's network of neurons does. And in this work, these researchers, there's a couple of different studies. So a group of researchers was looking at neural networks and how they learned. They compared, and this is published October 25th in Nature. These researchers were creating an artificial intelligence system that was based in neural network type paradigm, and it learned language better than ChatGPT. So in the end, they created a system that was able to train on words and concepts and learn in the way that people's brains would learn. So they tested people in the first study on fake words. They were nonsense words, but they gave them meaning. So they called them primitive words. Dax, whiff, lug. And these words, it's like learning another language. These words represented concepts like skipping or jumping. And then they had function words, blicket, kiki, and fep. Now I want to know why kiki is always used in these studies. But anyway, and then they had various rules for combining the functions with the primitives, and they could have sequences like dax, kiki, 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 or whiff, fep, which would be like jump 3 times or skip backwards or whatever. They trained the people also with the words related to colors. And so a red circle was dax, blue was lug, and the people got a combination of these primitive words and function words and with patterns of circles. And so people would be shown something like dax fep, and it had 3 red circles, or lug fep with 3 blue circles. And so it indicated how they were supposed to interpret what was going on. And so there wasn't any actual training of like, this is what this means. The participants had to figure out what the stuff meant. And so
and if poor really Blair was part of it, it just says dax, 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 dax over and over and over again.
Color, I don't know. But they had to apply the rules that were abstract and give the rules the right combinations of the primitive words and the function words, and they had to select the right color and number of circles and put things. So basically they had to understand nonsense and make sense out of nonsense. And so they tested it with people. So when people did the sense making out of the nonsensing, they were right about 80% of the time on average. And then when they trained their algorithm on the same kind of data, it was about the same. ChatGPT struggled with the task, failing between 42 and 86% of the time.
Oh, that's high.
Yeah, and so the researchers are interested in this because it's like a proof of principle that training and repetition can help scale up and can generalize across big data sets, but it also could potentially help us figure out how to get rid of hallucination in these algorithms we use like ChatGPT, so that we don't have as many inaccurate outputs. And then the second study, which follows right on the tail of this one, the researchers were looking at a neural network and comparing it with how people learn language, symbols, and concepts. And in training their neural network, they saw aspects of how they needed to train the computer network to get it to learn certain concepts like a cat or a dog, versus more abstract concepts like beauty, happiness, emotions, or whatever. And so you can look at a brain and see populations of nerve cells that light up in response to a picture of a dog or when asking a question related to how pretty something is. And language models really don't have that level of communication and meaningfulness. And so in this study that was published in Progress in Neurobiology just this last week, the researchers were pretty much able to separate different aspects of words, concepts, the abstract concepts, symbols. And like we've talked about on the show many, many times, the idea that if you learn a language growing up, it makes your brain kind of think about things in a different way. So you process information in a different way. And in the development of these machine-learned neural networks, they saw different neural networks becoming active with different situations. And this study actually produced computer evidence, AI evidence of this concept that, yes, when you think or you learn about the world around you in a particular language, it impacts the neural network that is created, the nerves that are connected in your brain to create the representation of a concept, symbols, etc. And then the way that those are all connected influence the way that you interact with the world and the way you think about the world and the way that you have abstract thought.
I wonder what Felix is going to be like then.
Right?
Felix, he's what, 18? Ooh, 19 months now, almost. He's now asking what everything is called, but he will ask his mother, and then he'll turn and ask me. Because he's figured out
that
two
different languages, two different ways to say
both have
things.
different words for everything. And so he will ask both of us, like, what's this? And then he'll turn to me, what's this? After getting mother's answer.
Right. And this is, I think, a fantastic question, which is, those of us who are raised speaking only one language, what does that do for how does it limit or constrain our thinking versus being able to think in multiple languages? There have been conversations where people switch from one way of thinking to another depending on which language they are using and how they're communicating, and it's as if the brain is segmenting its hard drive a little bit, as opposed to actually connecting those things. But that's not something that's been shown or proven, but it's just interesting to see as they train a machine learning neural network that there are these similarities, and they've been able to show that it does seem to support the idea of, what language you learn influence the structure of your brain, and that influences the way that you're able to think abstractly. Tell me about, this is not going to be a fun study, is it? Police.
Oh, it's spooky.
Spooky. Okay.
Researchers using anonymized smartphone data from nearly 10,000 phones in the possession of police officers in 21 large U.S. cities.
Okay.
This research is from Indiana University, but they were all over the United States for this study. They find officers on patrol spend more time in what demographic of society's neighborhoods? They spend more time patrolling non-white neighborhoods. So that's great. That means they're the focus of these police stations around the world, or around the United States, is to give extra protection to minority neighborhoods.
Right, to
That's
support them and
good
help
to
them.
know.
That's great.
Anyway, spooky, but true, and sad in a really pathetic, racist sort of way, because
Yeah.
research on policing has focused in the past on documenting actions such as stops and arrests, but patrols and presence, according to Kate Christensen, assistant professor of marketing at the Indiana University School of Business, says has not really been looked at is thoroughly. Police have a great deal of discretion. Police departments have discretion in deciding where law enforcement is provided within cities. And she says here that where police officers are located matters because it affects where crimes are deterred and what the public knows about crimes as they happen. Police presence can influence when and where crime is officially recorded. And so that's sort of true, I think, but also only sort of, because police presence isn't how crime is reported. Usually, it's usually reported by people who call the police and say, hey, there's a crime.
A thing happening. Yeah.
There's a thing happening. You should be over where this is. Police rarely see a crime in progress by just being nearby or present, unless you count traffic stops, in which case they only happen if there are, due to police presence. There has to be a police presence for the traffic stop. So that part does influence where and when it is recorded, if it is initiated by police officers, such as traffic stops, tickets, arrests, that they initiate from some sort of intervention into people going about daily lives. So the article is Smartphone Data Reveal Neighborhood Level Racial Disparities in Police Presence. It's in the Review of Economics and Statistics, which is edited at the Harvard Kennedy School. Few police departments actually collect this data themselves. So this was kind of a unique ability to get this anonymized data that has GPS tracking that allows them to tell where officers spend their time when they're patrolling in their cars and even outside of their cars. It revealed strong correlations between racial and ethnic composition of a neighborhood and police presence, which, again, if the role of the police is to protect and serve the community, then great. That means police departments across the U.S. have placed greater importance on protecting people of color than other neighborhoods. If, on the other hand, the role of policing is to increase funds of the city budget, of which they are often the largest expense, and therefore the greatest beneficiaries of such increases in funding, then it could be seen as intentionally targeting non-white communities as they are often underrepresented in local government and more vulnerable to exploitation. Researchers write, our findings suggest that disparities in exposure to police are associated with both structural socioeconomic disparities and discretionary decision-making by police commanders and officers. When they combine police presence data with geocoded arrest data available for 6 of the cities, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Austin, Washington, D.C., you should recognize those are all cities within the United States.
Yes.
They found higher arrest rates of Black residents were connected to more officer time spent in Black neighborhoods. The level of disparity persists after controlling for density, socioeconomic, crime-driven demand for policing. You know, there was you can
the
have
number of calls for help that
right.
Doesn't matter.
Could explain, about 33% of the presence, the extra presence in these communities could be explained in some place, of more calls coming in from some areas. But then they have the other 60 to 70%, which had no explanation other than targeting. So This is a quote here from this neighborhood level disparity persists after controlling for density, socioeconomic, and crime-driven demand for policing, and may be lower in cities with more black police supervisors, but not officers. Patterns of police presence statistically explain 57% of the higher arrest rate in more black neighborhoods. Violent crime data suggests a reasonable explanation for the increased police presence in about a third of locations.
Those don't match at all.
But it does, yeah. It's that other 60 to 70% that is not. So that's a big deal because, again, I find out what if you live in America, find out from your city because they have a budget. You should be able to look this up. You probably don't have to go in anywhere. You might even be able to look it up online. Find out what your police budget is. Mm-hmm. I think it will astound you. In a lot of cities, it's 50 or over 50% of the city's budget is going to policing. Not the potholes, not the schools, not to renovating the downtown area for business.
And all of this, if people are spending... The police are spending time in these particular neighborhoods. We have to also look at historic redlining of neighborhoods. We have to look at the history of why there are certain neighborhoods that are made up of minorities versus, being more diverse. There is history that impacted everything that we are seeing today, and this is an ongoing issue, but this is an additional piece of data showing the disparity that is obvious. Yeah,
it makes it look like targeting, and if the thing is, if you were. If this wasn't showing greater police presence in Black and also Hispanic communities, were also about the same level of increased policing compared to non-Hispanic white neighborhoods. Right. How I guess their phraseology there. If it was like policing is such a good thing. That the people in charge of the community somehow aren't allowing it to be, it's a little bit obvious what the role of policing is here. It's not positive. So what does that tell you, though? That if police patrolling and police presence is not a positive influence on a community, what are we spending half of the city budget on?
Yeah. And what are we doing? Right. Also, I have a story about what we're spending our money on in terms of our meat. Researchers publishing in Livestock Science this last week. Their paper is Willingness to Pay for Reduced Carbon Footprint and Other Sustainability Concerns Relating to Pork Production, a comparison of consumers in China, Denmark, Germany, and the UK. So the researchers, they looked at how people felt about animal welfare, about what would make them more willing to pay more money for pork products that they're purchasing. So we're talking about climate a lot recently. And so that's where these researchers were coming from, which is that, pigs and pig agriculture, the raising of pigs is a huge climate impact. But you can reduce it a little bit by shoving more pigs into smaller areas. You can have pigs produce more pigs faster. And there's a decrease in the amount of carbon dioxide that is released from these efforts. So the researchers were asking people in China, Denmark, the UK, what would they be willing to consider in terms of what they would pay for their pork products? And surprise, surprise, people really don't care about their pigs with respect to climate change. They want happy pigs. In China, they wanted healthy pigs. They want pigs that are not going to have a disease that's going to make everybody sick. But the Western countries were more interested in happy pigs. So people would spend more money, and in the study, they said about 20% more money to buy happy pig products. The problem is, according to the researchers, 20% of the cost from current prices of pig products to increase to some future price is not enough. 20% more in the cost of producing a pig for the products in the end cost for the consumer is not going to be enough to give that pig enough room, enough time, enough nice food, like to really make it happy. So the amount of the amount of money that people want to pay to have happy pigs and eat the happy pig products is less than what is necessary to buy the happy pig products. It's interesting. The researchers conclude in many countries, morality among piglets is sky high. I mean, I don't think he meant among piglets, because I don't think we're talking about like piglet morality here. But there are far too many sows that cannot withstand the production pressure as a consequence of their already being pushed so hard. So instead of increasing production pressure, yet further in the name of climate protection, we should, on the contrary, set higher minimum requirements for pig welfare and hopefully get them through at the EU level as well. In Denmark and at EU level, no regulations have been added since the late 90s. So it's time for something to be done about animal welfare.
So Denmark's number one export, aside from maybe LIGO, is pork products. You cannot buy good bacon in Denmark.
No?
Denmark has the worst bacon, Danish bacon, in Denmark. Because they apparently export all the good bacon.
Stuff.
It goes to the UK. The UK is eating all our bacon over here.
We'll pay for it.
So you get this. It's okay bacon, but it's not like, oh, there's a thick cut of bacon that you would hope for when you bought that bacon. You looked in that package and you say, oh, look, I can see that this one has some pork in it. It's not all fat. Anyway. So,
Gary L in the chat room on YouTube is saying, I think they would be happier if we didn't eat them. Probably true.
So this is an argument, though. This is an argument about when you're talking from the animal perspective. This is an argument I've always had with my oldest daughter, who at a very young age decided she didn't want to eat cows anymore, which is great. That's fine. Be a vegetarian. However,
there's other animals, not just cows.
Well, but my point though is that if we don't eat them, they wouldn't exist. With all the animals that have gone extinct, I mean, there's a reason that there's billions of pigs and billions of cows and chickens. Yes. Right? It's because without us eating them, they don't. So they have a
purpose,
domestic ecosystem that they're existing in.
Okay, but
they're existing in much greater numbers than a lot of other animals because of it. So there's
and they're having a massive impact on the climate, and we talk all the time about how one of the things that people can do to impact climate change is to not just get rid of their air conditioner or refrigerator or freezer, but is stop eating meat. And so this comes down to, if people are really, really concerned about animal welfare, if they would rather pay more for a happier pig, then what we should be investing in are not the big pig farms, the big things where it's massive numbers of animals that are really having incredible impacts on climate because the amount of excrement and methane emissions and other aspects of how they impact the environment. We should be really passing, and this is going to take voters, passing or voting for politicians and others who pass regulations that expect animal welfare to be top of the line, that make it so that you can't have more than a certain number of pigs per square meter. That once you start doing that, it's going to cost more. People are going to have to make choices. It's going to affect their wallets and their bottom line. They might not be happy, but maybe they will choose to eat pork products less often. And that's going to reduce demand, which will then continue the cycle, which will support the farms that are doing it right and the regulations and also climate change goals and sustainability. But it's not going to happen as long as we allow just whatever to happen to these animals that happens on these big farms. Anyway, I'm thinking more sustainable and the future and all that stuff. And...
I mean, there's other places we could start.
This is one place, but we could do the cows too. We could increase, make it so that there's certain regulations on ranching cows, on chickens, on pigs, like all of our feedstocks, not just, oh my gosh, it's protein and Americans love to eat meat and blah, 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 blah. No, like make it like European gas prices. Stuff's expensive. Like pay for it. Make it like a bottle of water. You don't want to buy it at a music festival. Like, make it so that people are hitting the wallet and they're like, okay, maybe I'll choose differently. And that's going to impact everything. But we're not doing that. We're in a, you can have whatever you want, however much you want of it. We're going to make it as cheap as possible. You get. And that's just not
and I think that's the right approach. I just think that the sustainability model does have to be part of that, and so hopefully with science we can find a sustainable way to continue to get, meaning everybody eats, everybody eats a nutritious meal, and part of the problem then too is like, well, if we have everything too processed, then we're going to have like disease from the processed meats and the things and the stuff. So you also want it to be.
We know that there are nutritious ways to eat that do not involve meat at every meal. And it's just this crazy idea that we've come up with. I grew up thinking that salmon was this special thing that you only got every once in like this like amazing, like somebody was, oh my God, somebody can pay for salmon? Oh my gosh.
Oh, my family was different. Yeah, my family was not waiting to pay for salmon. It's like, oh, somebody caught a salmon? All right, we're eating salmon.
Right, yeah, exactly. You're fishing for it.
Go get fishing
for it. But yeah, I mean, it's a similar kind of thing. Like, the buying of it or the work to get it. Like this is, it's a different cultural reality than what we have right now. But anyway, I'm going to think positively, right? We're going to move forward. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the show right now. I'm so glad that you're here with us. I hope you have your own opinions about all the things that we are discussing. We look for opinions and curiosity, and we hope that you're growing curiosity. Tell your friends about TWIS so they can be opinionated and curious too. And head over to twis.org. Click on the Zazzle link to find TWIS products. We've got lots of merchandise that helps to support the show. Also, click on that Patreon link, and you can become a patron of the show where you help support us in an ongoing fashion. $10 and more per month. Just $10 a month, really. Yeah. Yeah, it's less than Netflix these days. When you come every single week, right? Well, thank you by name at the end of the show. There's all sorts of other goodies, but we really need your support, and we thank you for your support. So those of you who are already supporting us, thank you so much.
And if you're looking for a free way to support us, hit the like and subscribe button on the YouTube channel, and then the algorithm will find that sucker with the money who will fork it over to support us. Well, whatever. I mean, Patreon. You know what I'm saying?
You're
The
hilarious.
person who's got the extra cash to like support science media and have that be a thing that exists. Those people.
All right, let's come back. It's now
good.
time for Dr. Kiki's Birdhouse.
Birdhouse.
Yeah,
I like it. Dr. Kiki's Birdhouse. That's fantastic. Well, how come? What took us 20 years to figure out Dr. Kiki's Birdhouse? That should have been
a thing, but it's now a thing. So, number one, birds aren't real.
What?
Well, they
Again?
are. No, you know.
I thought they got proven to be real.
Yeah. And there's a guy with a TED Talk, and he's got his whole memification thing. Birds aren't real, trying to show how misinformation spreads and could, prove conspiracy theory thinking and mindsets and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, a group of researchers looked at pigeons. Because, pigeons are smart. Don't you think of pigeons as being so intelligent?
Not really. No, I don't.
Yeah. So,
but they're survivors. Oh, they're scrappy. I'll give them that.
The best generalists. They could do. Yes, they survive. Researchers at Ohio State University looked at pigeons and how they could take a bunch of, like in the AI nonsense to sense language study earlier, they gave them a bunch of lines of widths and angles and rings and sectioned rings and all, and they had rules to it that the pigeons had to kind of figure out and peck at a button to get food. So it was like, oh, peck the right thing and you get food. And so the pigeons, they started doing great. So the pigeons, as they improved, through trial and error, they went from about 55% accuracy to 95% accuracy. And then they gave them... They
can learn.
Yes, pigeons can learn. With nothing that's like, this is what is the thing you should learn. It's just information. Just them figuring it out.
No instructions in bird language.
No. Yes. No bird tutor telling them what to do. And then in a more difficult scenario, they improved from 55 to 68%. There's a little bit of a limit to what they could do in terms of the complexity of all this information. But the researchers say that the pigeons were using what's called associative learning. So they were able to link a particular size of a line or a thing. And this is what I get my treat for. It's the Pavlov's bell association. So you ring a bell and dogs salivate even though there's no food. You've created an association between these things. And so we normally think of associative learning as really primitive and rigid, and we think of it like it's used in basic neurophysiology. We've got aplysia, these snails that retract themselves into the shell at a shock. And so they learn to avoid areas and do things. Associative learning is a very basic neural pattern and basic form of learning. But the researchers were like, these birds with this visual categorization and all that they're doing, this is more complex than what we expected the birds to be able to do. How do the birds do these things? Oh my gosh. Well, what they have found is that these birds are actually, very brighter than you expect them to be, essentially. And that they're able to put together these associations in a very seamless way. And in the way that they're able to put these associations together. It's actually teaching the researchers about how artificial intelligence works, because they were as good at solving these problems as basic machine learning algorithms.
Wow. I don't know if that means the pigeons are really smart or if the machine learning is just really basic.
Yeah, and so this is the part that of the study that I think is very fascinating, is that when they tested humans on this whole thing, humans tried to come up with rules and they could not do the task as well as the pigeons or the machine learning algorithms.
Overthinking.
Humans got frustrated. They wanted to make a rule and make it work, and that didn't work so well. So pigeons are probably robots? No, that's not what it is. Yeah, humans have a more complex layer of learning that is involved, and it's just interesting with these results to see that the associative learning is not just as basic and rigid as people may think it to be, and that it can impact much higher order complex systems like visual learning, and that these systems are used very capably by higher level organisms like pigeons, even though they're not the smartest birds. They're still better at this task than humans.
Maybe we just haven't been giving them the credit they deserve for intelligence.
Right.
Maybe they're much smarter than we just give. You just don't, I mean, it's bias, but you just don't look like a smart bird.
Yeah. But the researchers say the pigeons don't try to make rules. They just use this brute force way of trial and error and associative learning, and in some specific types of tasks, that helps them perform better than humans. Anyway, pigeons, maybe not so dim-witted as we think. Also, maybe they're robots, but you didn't hear me say that here. And then roosters. When you think of a rooster, you think of that bird dude who's strutting around the house, protecting his hens. He's going to fight off any other challengers. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to rooster crow if there's any predators around to warn his hens to make sure that nobody's getting eaten. That rooster is going to be in charge of stuff. But does that rooster really know who he is? Does he have self-awareness? Like a person? Like a dog? Like a dolphin?
I have a unique, somewhat jaded perspective on this because
yes, you lived in the country, same as me.
Lived on a very recently was living on a farm.
Yeah,
just a few years back, and most roosters are just running around doing like roostery chicken, just looking like a big chicken wandering around looking for something to peck. I had this one who used to walk up to me. He kind of like one eye look and then one eye look. And I was eating peanuts one day out there on the farm, eating peanuts, shucking them. And I just threw one away. He ate it. All of a sudden, this rooster would come around a lot, but he didn't
He's your friend. There you go.
Yeah, but I would like talk to him about stuff, and he seemed like he listened. He seemed like he was really paying attention when I was talking to him, and I could call him. And he would come over and, see if I had peanuts or sunflower seeds or something to throw. And then I'd get annoyed. I was like, okay, I'm working here, take off. And he would wander away. And I'm like, but it wasn't like all of the roosters on the farm.
Just that one.
None of the chickens. But this one rooster was like the smartest rooster and like the most like I get it. You're not in the mood to hang out today. I'll go wander off. Or like, hey, come over. What are you doing?
There's no reason that different roosters can't have different personalities and different ways of interacting with others.
This rooster was my buddy.
Yeah.
For a while, and then one day he wasn't there.
No.
And I didn't even want to talk to the farmer about it because roosters are for eating. And one day I was like, yeah, I haven't seen the rooster. And he's like, yeah, neither have I.
Oh.
Yeah.
Rooster took off.
I was like, you didn't get the rooster? I thought you got the rooster. He's like, I didn't take that rooster. Oh, no, what happened? So we think maybe like coyotes got my buddy. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. You were telling the story.
Sidelined, but great story. Glad, who knows what happened to your rooster?
I don't know.
In this particular study, researchers were looking at roosters and their potential self-awareness. So these researchers were interested in the fact that roosters will call out to others, their peers, about threats, about possibility of predators, other like a bird of prey coming around. And so in this study, similar to studies where they've looked for self-awareness in other animals by marking one part of an animal or another, they put a rooster in one of two sections of an indoor space. And in the other section, there was either nothing, it was empty. There was a mirror, so they just saw their own reflection, or there was another rooster.
Mm.
And then they projected a hawk, or the silhouette of a hawk, onto the ceiling of the room that the rooster was in. And they looked at how these roosters responded. How did these roosters respond with their, oh no, cock-a-doodle-doo, threat calls? There's something that's scary around here right now. The researchers found that the roosters, who had been marked with a cornstarch dye prior to some of these mirror interactions, the roosters called their alarm call
to themselves.
No, to the other rooster.
To the other rooster. I would have thought it would have been the opposite.
No, the roosters made more alarm calls when there was another real rooster, chicken, conspecific peer in the room with them. They did not make as many calls to themselves in a mirror. And we tend to think of birds as seeing themselves in a mirror and like attacking the image in the mirror, not under, These roosters figured it out. They got it.
So this is how.
Nope, that's me. Nope, no, I don't need to make a big deal about this.
How selfish of a rooster I would be.
Yeah.
Because other roosters on the farm are competition.
If
I saw a rooster that didn't look like me, I'd be like,
Justin.
I'm gonna go over here. I'm just gonna take a little walk underneath the shelter and just not say anything about the hawk, because if it gets him, if you didn't see it and he gets him, that's more hens for me. But but if he looks like me, they could be kin. I gotta look out for kin. Let him know. But no, it was the conspecific. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they like recognized that it was them in the mirror, or does that mean that they just couldn't tell what the mirror was?
Maybe it means they couldn't tell what the mirror was. Maybe it is that they recognized themselves in the mirror. One of the interesting aspects is the fourth condition, in which they had a mirror and another rooster So they saw themselves, but they also saw another rooster, and those results were within the bounds of an empty room or just a mirror in which they saw themselves. So it's possible that by seeing themselves, they only focused on themselves.
Okay, yeah, okay.
They didn't focus on the other rooster. Or like you were saying, in the selfish, I mean, it's interesting in the selfish game kind of idea. Oh, I see myself here.
Rooster.
Oh, this is me. I see myself. I don't know. Wait, if I don't say anything, maybe that other rooster. But it's an interesting result. So I think there's more that needs to be investigated here. But it was a huge difference between any mirror condition in which they saw themselves and just another rooster.
Well, hang on. So I think I see what's going on here. So you got empty, meaning there's nobody else to warn and not make myself obvious. Right.
No,
No need to take any risks.
Stay quiet.
Okay. Stay quiet. You see the mirror. You maybe don't even notice the hawk now. You're just like, hey, look, who's that good-looking rooster?
Or you recognize yourself and you're like, shh, keep quiet. Shh, don't say anything.
And then in the conspecific, oh, hey, there's my buddy, the other rooster. Hey, look out. And then he's there and the mirror, and now that rooster doesn't even notice the hawk. It's like, what a good-looking rooster that is. Wow.
So it's either that they're
get caught up in self-gazing.
It's either self-gazing, like you're saying, or it is that it's the selfishness, again, where it's like, I see myself. Oh, save that guy. Don't say anything. Don't warn anybody.
What if the thing he's telling the other rooster isn't, hey, look out? What if he's just going, run and flap.
Hawk.
Hey, how high can you jump?
Oh my goodness. Who knows the minds of roosters other than the roosters themselves? All right, tell me about blueberries. Are like summer fruit? Blueberries are wonderful.
So this is actually a story about sunflowers.
Oh, okay.
Which are cultivated for seeds and oil, but the stems of the sunflower are generally considered just to be a waste product. It's kind of thrown away, maybe turned into mulch or something like that. But turns out the extracts from sunflower stems could be useful in combating one of the world's most pernicious produce problems, the dreaded fuzzy blueberry, mold. That invasive fungus that creeps into blueberry baskets, always hiding a few blueberries deep to keep your prospective customers and vigilant produce managers in the dark. The problem can lead to significant economic losses and food waste, both for producers and consumers of blueberries. According to a paper in the journal Agricultural and Food Chemistry, compounds from sunflower crop waste can prevent rotting in blueberries. They suggest the food industry could use these natural compounds to protect against post-harvest diseases or inoculation from fungus. So sunflowers are particularly resistant to a lot of plant diseases. They're a great crop because you don't have to do as much to protect them, and they can grow in places where other crops might be more subjected to infestation. Researchers investigated whether the stems might contain chemical constituents responsible for this protective effect. They also wanted to find out if these compounds, which they did end up finding, could be used to fend off fungal plant pathogens and other things in fruit as a way to avoid the toxicity and resistance associated with chemical fungicides. Although just because it comes from a plant doesn't mean it's not a chemical. I'd like to point that out. Researchers isolated and identified the components in an extract focusing on diterpenoids, which are known to have biological activity. They found 17 of these diterpenoids, including 4 previously unknown compounds. Most of the diterpenoids showed activity against gray mold, the bane of blueberries. Four of the compounds, including two of the newly identified ones, were effective at destroying the plasma membrane of the fungus, causing its cells to leak and preventing it from forming biofilms. In another test, researchers briefly wet blueberries with the stem extracts, then dried the fruits and injected them with mold spores. Over a period of 6 days, the stem extracts protected almost half the berries from mold growth. So almost half doesn't really sound like it was super effective, but in the wild, blueberries aren't usually being injected with mold spores either.
Right.
So it was also an extreme.
A little extreme.
Experiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the scientists conclude that sunflower stem extracts could be used as natural biocontrol agents to prevent post-harvest disease in fruit.
You can also just shake around your. You could shake around your blueberries before you buy them. Check for that mold. Get them home and wash them in a little bit of baking soda and vinegar. And
by the time I do all that, I've eaten something else because I was hungry, and so I snacked on something else during this whole washing and powdering process. And now I'm not even hungry, so they go back into the fridge, and then the thing I was eating, I put that in the fridge, which pushes the blueberries to the back where they just rot and become food waste.
And that's gross.
So no matter what you do, really.
The issue of food waste is a really big issue. And if you can get more berries to consumers before they've gone bad and started molding, that's going to be a benefit, right? More people are going to eat them, consume them, and it just won't go to waste. Right?
Yeah.
But who knew? Sunflowers?
Sunflower stems have got all this this antifungal compound built in. Nice.
But what if you just grew sunflowers and blueberries together? Would that help? I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
No, because you have to extract from the sunflowers.
Well, so the thing is, though, but you kind of make a good point, and this is the monoculture of agriculture is a thing that is part of the whole sustainability picture, because maybe if you don't have an entire 40 acres of blueberries, but have a bunch of it that is sunflower, maybe not too close because sunflowers are kind of tall, whatever, there isn't, because the mold doesn't, it has to be growing somewhere else also.
Yeah.
And if it can't grow on the sunflowers, it means you might be able to protect your blueberry fields by surrounding them with a protective fence of sunflower. Yeah, could be.
Could be.
That's there. There's the next.
That's another
level
study.
experiment.
Yeah. Next study. All right. Let's go back into deep history. We've had our blueberries and sunflowers, which we love, but now it's time. It's fall. It's time to fall back. Well,
Does it
not
fall
yet.
back?
No, but
Does it fall forward?
No, it's fall back.
Because you spring back. You condense the
spring
spring, it then
forward and you
springs
fall.
back.
No. But anyway, that's like a week.
Spring forward.
It's like a week and a half from
good.
now. Tell me about the history and the big destruction of a
yes, the
story.
old trope.
Yeah,
Men hunt,
trope.
women gather. And it's always been that way. Although often refuted by anthropology, ancient societies, there were no such luxuries of only doing one thing. Everyone hunted, everyone gathered. It was everyone's job to survive. The idea that women were not physically capable of hunting because of anatomy has never been from actual evidence of a lack of women hunting, but from a whole lot of assumptions made by male professors who were likely not athletic hunters themselves. So it's sort of weird that they would decide that. According to research,
Okay.
according to research
Go on.
by University of Delaware anthropology professor Sarah Lacey, which was recently published in Scientific American. I think there's also two papers in the journal American Anthropologist. Lacey and colleague Kara Achabach from the University of Notre Dame examined the division of labor according to sex during the Paleolithic era, going from, well, they went back about 2.5 million years to as recently as around 12,000 years, looking at any evidence they could find in the anthropological record of division of labor in the sexes when it came to hunting, gathering. Review of all the current archaeological evidence and literature they found, well, if anything at all, to support the idea that roles were ever assigned specifically to each sex. The team looked at female physiology, found that there's no reason women would not be physically capable of being hunters. And there's also evidence of ancient injuries on fossil finds that provide evidence to support that they were involved in the hunt. They found that men have an advantage over women in activities requiring speed and power, such as sprinting, throwing, some of that upper body strength, lower body strength. I guess that's both. But women have an advantage over men in activities requiring endurance, such as running long distances. Both sets of these activities were essential to hunting in ancient times. In fact, if you think about the advent where we think humanity's hunting skills began, it began with persistence hunting. Persistence hunting is long distance running after an animal that can't sweat properly and eventually overheats and just lies down so that you can stab it while it's gasping, tired out and get up. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's not like you have to arm wrestle the wildebeest. You just have to run long distance after it. And according to what they're saying, it's like actually women would have been much better at that portion of the hunting skills. The team highlighted the role of that hormone estrogen, more prominent in women than men, a key component in conferring that advantage. It can increase fat metabolism, which gives muscles longer lasting energy sources and can regulate muscle breakdown, which prevents muscles from breaking down, which then also, like, that's how you get the strong male muscles as they break down and then rebuild a little stronger each time. So it's just different strategies. Scientists have traced estrogen receptors proteins that direct the hormone to the right place in the body back as far as 600 million years. Okay, so when we take, this is quoting Lacey, when we take a deeper look at the anatomy of the modern physiology, and then actually look at the skeletal remains of ancient people, there is no difference in trauma patterns between males and females because they're doing the same activities.
That is fascinating. Okay, so what they're saying, the trauma patterns. So they're looking at the bones, they're looking at how they've been impacted by work, by the activities they're doing, whether they've been injured or, how they were injured. And you would expect differences.
Yeah, so she says, you live in a small society. You have to be really, really flexible. Everyone has to be able to pick up any role at any time. It just seems like the obvious thing, but people weren't taking it that way. And part of this has to do with man the hunter. This is a bedrock collection of scholarly papers presented in 1966 in a book written in 1968. Two male anthropologists made the case that hunting advanced human evolution by adding meat to the prehistoric diet, contributing to growth of bigger brains compared to primates. And the authors just assumed that all of the hunters were male.
Yes.
No reference to
this
anything.
Is standard. This is just standard. This is just how it's happened so many times.
So when men saw a weapon in a grave site, they said that's
a
male.
man's, yes.
If a female scholar looked at it and said, whoa, if you look at the forensics and the pelvis and this, that's actually a woman. So female scholars have been publishing research that contradict Man the Hunter for decades and decades now. And this is quoting Lacey.
But there are fewer women involved in that research, so the research is less and the data is less, and that's
well. It also got.
Go ahead.
It also So the quote is: there were women who were publishing about this in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but their work kept getting regulated to, oh, that's a feminist critique or a feminist approach. Because there was...
Of course it is.
What's the word? Is it misogyny? Is that the one? Or is that...
Is that the word?
I think that's a word.
Yeah.
In the field.
Yeah. Really?
So this is before any of the, genetics revolution or understanding of the roles of estrogen, and also in the analysis of things. So even like stone tools, the stone tools were attributed to men making them stone tools, which you can tell by looking at a stone tool, the gender of the person who napped it. Like, what?
Now, maybe you can figure out like whether they were right-handed or left-handed.
Yeah. Maybe there's a napping pattern that you can suss out something like that. But
yeah, no, I think this is fantastic. This is two papers, not just one. This is awesome work trying to put together these stories and challenge the status quo in the field. And, like we said earlier in the show, it's kind of able-bodied people who can do these things. Who wants to do it? You want to do this? You could do this. And let's go do this. Okay, who's going to help in the hunt? Who's going to help in the making the food? Who's going to do these things? If you're working as a tribe, everybody gets to do the things.
Yeah.
That's what helps everybody do better.
Huh.
Oh.
Everybody's got a pitch in, especially if it's, we either all go to work today or we don't eat.
Yes.
Which you can't, that's the amazing thing. I'm surprised any animals survive for a long time, because I feel like I would just get too lazy as an animal and be like, I'm not going to hunt today. And you take that day off hunting and now you didn't eat. Now you're like,
suddenly you're
now
like
I don't have the energy to hunt.
What?
I can't run as fast. I'm not as strong as I should be. Now I can't catch a wildebeest. I'll try to eat something else. But I got to wash the blueberries and put powder on them. Oh, I'll do that later. And then next thing you know, you've gone extinct.
Oopsies. I didn't do the work. Now I'm dead. Okay.
So I think really what we're looking at is all of humanity is the product of unlazy people who worked really hard.
I think that's a very apt statement. Pretty much. Yeah. Speaking from the brainy side of things, researchers have been trying to figure out the role of the hippocampus in memory for ages and ages and ages and ages, and trying to figure out, okay, the hippocampus, we know that it's involved in spatial navigation. We know it's involved in memory formation, or at least in bringing memories in and then sending them out to wherever they're going to be stored, and kind of part of that. And so a group of researchers published in Science this last week their work using optogenetics, which is actually a really interesting use of this technology, where they were able to use light to stimulate certain neurons in the hippocampus and turn off other neurons in the hippocampus during certain things. The hippocampus is involved in associations between time, place, and action. So, and it's also involved in the planning of future actions, so predicting things.
Is that the one that's got the one? Is that the part of the brain that has dedicated neurons to direction as well? Because that would be
Yes.
like the
Place
time and place
cells.
stuff, right?
They're called place cells.
Place
Yes.
cells.
Yes.
I always think that's so fascinating.
Yes. It is, and it is fascinating. It's like, we've got this little 3-dimensional kind of vector system. You know, every time you step into a new room, your hippocampus is like,
It's like simulating the real world so that the body can navigate it. It's got a little simulator running up there, a little model of everything. And it's like, okay, so now if you do this, this is what should happen. It's like doing all this calculating.
Right, but it's not just calculating whether you're in the corner of the room or whether you're navigating from one corner of the room to the other corner of the room. It's also like paying attention to like, okay, I was in the room this morning and oh my God, my cat like threw up and I had to go clean it up. And it's putting together all this information related to your terrible morning. Like it remembers that episode and why this morning was a bad morning compared to other mornings when your cat was just nice and snuggled with you. And so there is a hypothesis. There have been 2 hypotheses that are involved in the hippocampus and how it works. And there's an idea of like the coding. So like the way that the neurons go beep, 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 boop, 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 turning on and off and connecting with other neurons in the system. And researchers have been trying to figure out the association between all these things for a very, very long time. So how can you just like know that you're going from one place to another, you're at your house, or you want to go to your friend's house and you're going to go that way, or that you're going to go to the neighborhood grocery store and buy apples because you like the apples at this grocery store more than the apples at the other. Your hippocampus is involved in that kind of stuff. But maybe one day the route you take to the Apple store, not like the technology store, but like the place where you buy the apples that you like to eat, the road's closed because of construction. And so you have to find a different route to get to your apples. And your hippocampus is maybe involved. Like, do you have an internal map? Is it like, how is the brain working? Can the hippocampus, is the hippocampus involved in predicting a new route that might work for you or multiple routes that might work? All right, so they stuck a bunch of electrodes into a rat's brain and they had rats go from place to place for rewards. And they used optogenetics, which could turn different neurons in the hippocampus on or off at different times to test what was going on. And so they would tweak the learning of the path from your house to the Apple store. So the rats would start at the house and they'd end up at the Apple store and they'd be like, I like both these things. How'd I get here? I don't know what happened. So there's the sequence of events that gets you from one place to another. And there's a sequence of cells that fire in the path as you go from one place to another. And so by using optogenetics, they could turn off the neurons to stop that sequential firing. And then there's the other aspect that's more like milestones or new routes in different ways. And so maybe it's gonna go from this place to that place, and it's not the sequence that they messed up, but it was the overall code of going to get apples that was messed up.
So but then what you're talking about there is a landmark series of things. So it's I'm gonna walk this direction. Train station, that means I'm going to turn left. Candy store, oh, that means I gotta keep going and then turn right and then so you're picking out spots that you tell you that you're getting closer to your destination.
Right. And so they manipulated these neurons and impacted the way that the sequencing either happened or the overall thing of I gotta go get a reward. How do I go get there? Oh my gosh. And so they either impacted the sequence or the predictive ability of how to change a path and like take a different path to get to the store. And so in doing this, what they discovered is that there are two types of memory that are encoded differently with different types of coding. So overall in the hippocampus, there's like a, we're doing this thing and going to this place, I love apples memory. And this is like, I know there's an Apple store and I'm going to go to the Apple store. But then, and I know how to get there. But then there's the other part, which is there are multiple ways to get to that Apple store. And there's different coding for those different predictive paths. And so the sequence, and so there's like a bigger general coding and then a sequential coding. And either of them can be messed up. And it affects memory differently. And so this implies that the hippocampus is like an interesting coding computer. It has these different types of codes that work together to allow us to do the things that we do. But when you have somebody who's has dementia or Alzheimer's, where their memory is impacted in a very particular way, that perhaps it's not the entire population of neurons that's being impacted. Right. Maybe it is like some of the sequences and the way
you only need to be missing. Yeah. Wow. Because and then suddenly the mapping system doesn't have its landmark, or if it's missing just one left, right in the sequence, but doesn't have.
Yeah.
But doesn't have the right, because I don't feel like I'm going in a sequential set of things.
But there are sequential. There are things that you do that your brain notes in a very time-coded manner. And then when you go to bed, it replays those things in the time code, like the neural network of your different communities of neurons that work together. They fire together, they wire together, they fast forward through those events, and that makes it a memory. It makes it something that's solid within your brain. And when you disrupt that, and whether it's through disrupted sleeping or whether it's through neuronal deficits, neuronal degeneration, that is going to impact the way that the memories are formed. But they also, maybe these are targets. Maybe there are ways that we can work with them to treat these things. Anyway, I love the hippocampus is my favorite part of the brain. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And then because we're on a visual communication medium right now, it's kind of like a Zoom call. We use StreamYard. It's pretty awesome. But anyway, there was some work published in Imaging Neuroscience this last week where researchers wanted to know whether or not there was a big difference between in-person interaction brains and Zoom brains. And even though previous studies have shown that there can be some synchronization of brains across these virtual media, this study specifically, they used what's called functional near-infrared spectroscopy. They were looking in the visual area of the brain, the dorsoparietal regions, for cross-brain synchrony and also for face recognition, in-person face recognition. They also had EEG, and they showed that Zooming is not as real as real in-person connections. That there is that the brain does not respond the same, and the choreography of the neurons and how they interact, it's not the same over Zoom. So even though we can talk and we can interact and we can have a nice time, the dynamic, what the researcher says, dynamic and natural social interactions that occur spontaneously during in-person interactions appear to be less apparent or absent during Zoom encounters. Online representations of faces, at least with current technology, do not have the same privileged access to social neural circuitry in the brain. That's typical of the real thing.
Interesting. Now,
Now.
what I would be interested in finding out is if that's training with screens that's resulting in this, or experience with screens, like watching television. And so there's something on a screen. And so you don't, like, I'm kind of curious, like, if somebody who's not in a culture or society that watches screens all the time, you know, like, audiences used to jump in their seats in the simplest things in the early time movies.
Well, you still do. I mean, jump scares are a real thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a whole thing. And, you know, there are people who are some people are more emotionally, I don't know, empathic than others. Like, you get into the life of a character in a show and you just have to know what's going to happen. You know, you get into the story and the character and all this stuff. But TV also isn't interaction. You're watching passively. Whether or not you are psychologically feeling like you are engaging, you're not actually talking. Right now, you and I are talking. We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
I think so. But at the same time, every time we've done a live show, it's different.
That's absolutely. But then we're also not having any eye contact. Because when we're doing a live show, we're all sitting on the same side of a table, looking out at the audience and talking for a good part of it. And so that's a whole weird dynamic too.
It is. That's a different paradigm. Yeah.
I don't think we can be used. I don't think we can be used as an example, having done
no, not us.
2,000-3,000 hours of this
time online together.
Yeah, I think our at least interactions here are probably much more fluid than somebody who's like just got the Zoom uploaded on their computer and has to do a meeting for the first or a dozenth time or whatever.
So I mean, I'd love to know, you know, more about the numbers and the experience, and you know, whether or not this is some random person I've never met before and I'm talking to them on Zoom versus seeing them in person versus people you know very well that you're connecting with. You know, eye contact is a big deal though.
Yeah, and Lon says, I have decades of practice making eye contact with the camera. That is something I'm terrible at, by the way. I can't look up there at the camera. Like, it's the weird, like, I know it probably looks weird. I've tried to position it so that my eye line doesn't seem like I'm looking off somewhere else. But for me to talk like this, as though I'm talking to Kiki, feels bizarre.
It is bizarre.
It doesn't feel right at all. So I make eye contact with the screen eye that you have, which makes it up here look like I'm not making eye contact with you, which then you might feel like, oh, is he even making eye contact with me because I can't tell? So I can see how these social cues could get all crunched up in the Zoom platform environment.
But I think it's going to be a very interesting development forward, you know, as we are developing with the technology and more people, especially since the pandemic and other, you know, more and more people are online doing things, and whether they're going to just be Zooming, are we going to be doing VR where we're like just avatars? I don't know what's going to be happening. But how our brains react in these artificial systems versus in the real world is important as we address the future of mental health and loneliness, which is a growing issue. More and more people, especially younger generations, life is loneliness, people. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm a nihilist now. I don't know, but lot of people are lonely, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. It's impacting mental health. And if we're not able to address it appropriately, if these digital platforms aren't able to help us feel connection with people, then
we're in trouble.
We need to figure things out, and it's not just pills. So, really, come on.
But where did all the people go then? Like, why aren't people talking to other people?
They're lonely and scared and tired, and life is hard, and there's all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, part of the problem with not being lonely,
you got to put yourself
is that then
there.
if that's your priority, then you just have to hang out with whoever's available, and that's not necessarily
because that can compound the loneliness, but
that can make it worse. There's a lot of people out there I would rather be alone talking to myself with than talking. Did I say that right?
No, but that's okay.
Okay.
Yes, actually, yeah, no, I get that. I get what you just said.
Yeah.
But honestly, though, I mean, I do feel like that with our chat room and with everything, I feel like we do have a connection with our audience and with people here. And I feel like we have a connection with each other. But it is definitely like our brains know that we're doing this over a computer, over internet, over thousands of
that's why I'm not even wearing pants. Like, why would I need to do that? I'm a Zoom call thing that's not Zoom. What are we using again? Live StreamYard.
Yeah, it's amazing.
StreamYard.
Yes. But I think we've come to the end of this episode, and I hope that we have kept people company, helped with the loneliness, also helped distract people's brains from the rest of the news world that's out there right now. John Ratnaswamy asked, when I use the end of my finger to pick up a crumb, does the crumb adhere to my finger because of electricity, moisture, magic, or something else?
All of the above.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm guessing on electricity, but yeah.
Yeah, physics.
Could be.
Yeah, Van der Waals forces. We've also got moisture, like sweat, and we got oils, and we have little fingerprints that like stretch out when something smushes up against it, and all that stuff can counteract the power of gravity for just a little while. Yeah, so it's not magic. I'm gonna say not magic. Not magic. No.
I think everybody's
maybe
magical.
Glue. If you're talking,
everybody's magical, and they should absolutely use their powers for good.
You're a magical unicorn. Yes. Okay. Are we done? We're done, right? Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this show. Thank you for all of your attention. Love that all of you who have been here in the chat room have been here commenting and being a part of the conversation. Everyone, chat rooms, really, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Discord. Thank you for being here. Fada, thank you for your help on the social media and show descriptions. Can't do it without you. Gord, Aranlor, others who help keep the chat rooms nice places for everyone to be. Thank you for keeping it civil. Identity4, thank you for recording the show. And Rachel, thank you for editing. And to all of our Patreon sponsors, I say a huge thank you. To Arthur Kepler, Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kenton Northcote, Rick Loveman, George Corris, Pierre Velazarb, John Ratnaswamy, Carl Kornfeld, Chris Wozniak, Begard, Chefstad, Donathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Reagan, Shoe Rouge, Sarah Forfar, Don Mundus, PIG, Stephen Albaran, Daryl Myshak, Stu Pollack, Andrew Swanson, Fredis 104, Sky Luke, Paul Vornovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack, Brian Carrington, David Eing, Youngblood, Sean Clarence, Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying out, Christopher Dreyer, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Rick Ramus, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, E.O., Adam Mishkan, Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBell, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul D. Disney, David Simmerly, Patrick Pecoraro, and Tony Steele. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. If you would like your name to be read out loud and would like to be a part of supporting the show in an ongoing way, head over to twist.org and click on that Patreon link on next week's show.
We will be back at some time, possibly 8 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesday, broadcasting live from our YouTube and our Facebook channels and from twist.org/live.
Want to listen to us as a podcast? Look for This Week in Science wherever you find the podcasts. If you enjoy the show, please get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories are available on our website, www.twist.org, where you can also sign up for our newsletter.
We will do one someday. You can contact us directly. Email me, Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Put TWIS in the subject line so it does not get spam filtered into fuzzy blueberries that somebody didn't put sunflowers around and that are going moldy and end up in the trash. Just don't do that.
You can also hit up your ex, where we are at Twist Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to tonight, please let us know.
We'll be back here again next week, and we do hope that you will join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember, it's all in your head.
It's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.